Biodiversity and conservation. Threats to biodiversity. Human activities and loss of habitat. Human activities are causing a loss of biological diversity among animals and plants, globally estimated at 50 to 100 times the average rate of species loss in the absence of human activities. Two most popular species in rich biomes are tropical forests and coral reefs. Then deforestation. Forest ecosystem contain as much as 80% of the world's terrestrial biodiversity and provide wood, fiber, and biomass energy as well as critical components of the global cycles of water, energy, and nutrient. Forest ecosystems are being cleared and degraded in many parts of the world. Desertification. Desertification and deforestation are the main causes of biodiversity loss. Both processes are recessively influenced by the extension of agriculture. The direct cost of deforestation is reflected in the loss of valuable plants and animal species. The certification process is the result of poor land management, which can be aggravated by climatic variations. Threats to biodiversity. Marine environment. Oceans play a vital role in the global environment, covering 70% of the Earth's surface. They influence global climate, food production, and economic activities. Despite these roles, coastal and marine environment are being rapidly degraded in many parts of the globe. Climate change. As climate warms, species will migrate towards higher latitudes and altitudes in both hemispheres. The increase in the amount of CO2 in the air affects the physiological functioning of plant and animal composition, plant and species composition. Moreover, aquatic ecosystems, particularly coral reefs, mangroves, swamps, and coastal wetlands, are vulnerable to changes in climate. Habitat loss, invasive species, overexploitation, climate change, pollution. Acid rain. That's an important topic. Acid rain, it caused by chemical reaction that begins when compounds like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides are released into the air. These substances can rise very high into the atmosphere, where they mix and react with water, oxygen, and other chemicals to form more acidic pollutants known as acid rain. Acid rain has been shown to have adverse impacts on forests, freshwater, and soils, killing insect and aquatic life forms, causing paint to peel. Corrosion of steel structures such as bridges, then weathering of stone buildings and statues, as well as having impacts on human health. Sometimes the acid concentration is so high in lakes, rivers, and streams that fish and other organisms die. Here we can see that. Pollution, eutrophication. Sewage deposits consist of nitrate, phosphate, sodium, potassium, calcium, etc., and other additions, and their additions into water bodies makes it rich in nutrients, especially phosphate and nitrate ions. Those nutrients make the water bodies highly productive or eutrophic, and the phenomenon is called eutrophication. So nitrate, phosphate, sodium, potassium, calcium. This can be a problem in marine habitats such as lakes, as it can cause algal blooms. Some algae even produce toxins which are harmful to higher forms of life. Eutrophication of water bodies has a negative impact on human health, contributing to the spread of the gastrointestinal and dermatological disease conjunctivitis. Eutrophication of water bodies has a negative impact on human health, contributing to the spread of the gastrointestinal and dermatological diseases conjunctivitis. Eutrophication of water bodies has a negative impact on human health, contributing to the spread of the gastrointestinal and dermatological disease. Eutrophication of water bodies has a negative impact on human health, contributing to the spread of the gastrointestinal and dermatological diseases. Conjunctivitis is also happening. So, though some fish can breathe on land, taking oxygen from air, most of the fish, when taken out of water, suffocate and die. Here you can see a depiction of this eutrophication. sediments from land, blocks, and light, sedge grass, nitrogen, and phosphorus. These nutrients cause an increase in phytoplankton. Phytoplankton growth on sedge grass. Then oxygen decay, algal algae die, algae bloom. Excessive growth will take place. Loss of food and habitat and oxygen production. Eutrophication. Okay. Here you can see a real life depiction or a picture where excessive algal growth or algal bloom is happening. Okay. Reduces biodiversity loss. Government legislation, nature preserves, reducing amount of invasive species, habitat restoration, captive breeding and soil banks, reducing climate change. Benefits of biodiversity. Preserving biodiversity preserves ecosystem services and directly provides things of pragmatic value to us like food, fuel and fiber, shelter and building materials, air and water purification, waste decomposition, climate stabilization and moderation, nutrient cycling, soil fertility, pollination, pest control, genetic resources. Biodiversity zonation. Structure and design of biodiversity reserves in order to undertake complementary activities of biodiversity conservation and development of sustainable management aspects. Biosphere reserves are demarcated into three interrelated zones. Here you can see core area, buffer area, transition area, human settlement, research, education, training, tourism, and recreation. These are the parts and also some things happening inside these areas. So first is the core zone. The core zone is kept absolutely undisturbed. It must contain suitable habitat for numerous plant and animal species, including higher order predators, and many contain centers of endemism. Endemism means these kind of organisms only live in that place. Okay, so a core zone secures legal protection and management and research activities that do not affect natural processes and wildlife are allowed. Then comes the habitat. Next phase, the core zone is the first one, then the buffer zone. These uses and activities include restoration, demonstration of sites for enhancing value addition to the resources, limited recreation, tourism, fishing and grazing, which are permitted to reduce its effect on core zone. Then the transition zone. The transition zone is the outermost part of biosphere reserve. The activities in this zone include settlements, croplands, managed forests, then an area for intensive recreation and other economic uses characteristic of the region. Here we could see another picture. Transition zone, buffer zone, core zone, human settlement. Most probably in this transition zone. Okay, these are the biosphere reserve zones. It may be described as natural areas that are generally used for scientific study. A list of biosphere in India are core, buffer, restoration, and culture transition zones. Biodiversity hotspots. A biodiversity hotspot is a biogeographic region that is both a significant reservoir of biodiversity and is threatened with destruction. In India, the Himalayas, the Western Ghats, and the Indo-Burma region, and the Sundarland. To these may be added the Sundarbans and the Terai Duar savanna grasslands for the unique foliage and animal species. This area is not. Biosphere reserves in India. Nanda Devi. Next, you can see National Park objective: conservation species of a habitat with minimal or very low intensity of human activity. Features: no human resides in the park other than a public servant on duty and permitted persons by the Chief Wildlife Warden. Core region. National Park is the core region. Sanctuaries: conservation of species and habitats by manipulative management. No human resides in the sanctuary other than a public servant on duty and permitted persons on duty by the Chief Wildlife Warden. Core area, sanctuary, buffer, and then restoration area. Then biosphere reserve: conservation of the natural resources and for the improvement of the relationship between man and the environment therein. Both natural and human influenced ecosystem, substantial human settlements, rural, core, buffer, restoration and cultural. Biosphere reserve: it's a natural area that is reserved by the government or private agency for the protection of particular species. Area is designated for the protection of wild animals. Only animals are conserved. Could be private property also. Outside activities allowed. It came under a category called protected areas. The protected areas are declared under Wildlife Protection Act 1972. International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, has defined its category type. Category 4. Then National Park. This is about wildlife sanctuary. The next, national park: reserved area of land owned by the government. Area is protected from human exploitation, industrialization, and pollution. No cutting, grazing allowed. Outside species allowed. It came under the category called the protected areas. The protected areas are declared under Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Conservation of wild nature for posteriorly as a symbol of national pride. International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, and its World Commission on Protected Areas has declined this category. Two type of protected areas. Then biosphere reserve: notified areas which cover a large area of land, which may cover multiple national parks, sanctuaries, and reserves as well. Areas are meant for conservation of biodiversity of a specific area. 3 areas: core, buffer, and marginal. No outside species allowed. Conservation and research purpose. It is internationally recognized within the framework of UNESCO's Man and Biosphere MAB program and nominated by national governments. Then the IUCN Red List categories. The Red List categories are the extinct, EX, EW, threatened, CR, EN, VU, least concerned, NT, and LC. We will be describing all these. Extinct, EX. No reasonable doubt that the last individual has died. Then extinct in the wild, EW, known only to survive in captivity, cultivation, or well outside its natural range. Critically endangered, CR, facing extremely high risk of extinction in the wild. Then threatened, endangered, EN, facing a very high risk of extinction in the wild. Vulnerable, VU, facing a high risk of extinction in the wild. Near threatened, NT, close to qualifying or likely to qualify for a threatened category in the near future. Then least concern or LC, population is stable enough that is unlikely to face extinction in the near future. Then data deficient, DD, not enough information on abundance or distribution to estimate its risk of extinction. So that means this DD category can also come under threatened or extinct if we don't know that it's extinct or threatened because it's a data deficient category. Red list, we can see extinct EX and EW, extinct in the wild, extinct, threatened CR, ENVU. Critically endangered, endangered, vulnerable, least concern as NT and LC. That means near threatened and least concerned. Extinct, extinct in the wild, threatened categories, critically endangered, endangered and vulnerable, near threatened, least concern. These are least concern. Next category, then data deficient and not evaluated. There is also another category, not evaluated. Similarly, it's kind of similar like the data deficient area. Community ecology, we are going to learn about that. Habitat and niche. A habitat is a particular space or place where organisms live. A habitat is a particular place where organisms live. Its address. A niche defines a particular role played by organism in an ecosystem, like profession. Ecological niche idea. Ecological niche, profession of an organism, that is its tropic position in food webs, how it lives and interacts with the physical environment and with other organisms in its community. Niche width and niche shift. Niche width is a degree to which a species utilizes all available patches or resources. No two species can sustain coexistence if they occupy the same niche. Cause mixed two species of Paramecium that competed for the same food. One population grew rapidly and was more successful at finding food. This is called niche shift. Niche overlaps. Niche overlap is a measure of association of two or more species. This indicates their similar habitat requirement and may also indicate competition if trophical niche, spatial niche is same and food space is limited. Two different parasites on the same host. Fundamental niche and realized niche. Fundamental niche is that an organism would occupy in the absence of competitors and predators. Realized niche is the resources actually used in presence of competitors. Sometimes fundamental and realized niche are termed as pre-competitive and post-competitive niche. Fundamental niche, pre-competitive and post-competitive niches. Fundamental niche is always greater than or equal to realized niche. Realized niche for different populations of same species may differ because of difference in competitors and predators between location. Fundamental niche and realized niche. Realized niche for different populations of same species may differ because of difference in competitors and predators between location. Species diversity, biodiversity and its types. Species diversity. Species diversity refers to the variety of different types of species found in a particular area. It is the biodiversity at the most basic level. It includes all the species ranging from plants to different microorganisms. Then genetic diversity, it refers to the variations among the genetic resources of the organism. Every individual of a particular species differs from each other in their genetic constitution. That is why every human looks different from each other. Similarly, there are different varieties in the same species of rice, wheat, maize, barley, etc. Ecological diversity. An ecosystem is a collection of living and non-living organisms and their interaction with each other. Ecological diversity, biodiversity, refers to the variation in the plant and animal species living together and connected by food chains and food webs. Then comes species diversity in detail: alpha diversity, beta diversity and gamma diversity. Alpha diversity, this is the local diversity which is expressed as the number of species in a small area of more or less uniform habitat. Alpha or local diversity, this is sensitive to habitat area and intensity of sampling effort. Then beta diversity, this is the wait a minute. Alpha diversity is the local diversity which is expressed as the number of species in a small area of more or less uniform habitat. Alpha or local habitat is sensitive to habitat area and intensity of sampling effort. Beta diversity, the difference in species from one habitat to the next, is referred to as a beta diversity. Gamma diversity or regional diversity is the total number of species observed in all habitat within a region or geographical area that includes no significant barriers to dispersal of organisms. Here you can see a depiction of this landscape AB and landscape CD, site A, site B, site C, site D. So alpha diversity within site C, site B, beta diversity between site A and site B, gamma diversity between these two landscapes, landscape AB and landscape CD. In between them, we could see gamma diversity, alpha diversity, and alpha and beta diversity. You can see ecological succession, such continuous unidirectional sequential changes in a species composition of a natural community initiated by disturbance is called succession. Exposed rocks, lichens and mosses, annual weeds, perennial weeds and grasses, shrubs, aspen, cherry and young pine forest, beech and maple, broadleaf forest. Pioneer species, the community that are first developed, is called pioneer species. Pioneer communities that made up of relatively few species that are able to immigrate and can live under and often extreme environmental conditions. The first species to populate on area, that is the pioneer species. Okay. Type of succession, primary succession. It starts from primitive substratum. There was no previously any sort of living matter. First group of organisms are known as pioneer. Stages of primary succession. Here you can see secondary succession. It starts from previously built up substratum with already existing living matters. Action of any external forces such as climatic factors or biotic factors causes disappearance of community. Here you can see in case of secondary succession, annual weeds are already there. Okay. But in case of primary succession, there is exposed rocks are seen in case of first stage. Mechanism of succession, nudation. Succession begins with the development of a bare area without any form of life. The area may develop due to several causes such as landslide, erosion, deposition, or other catastrophic agency. Then invasion or migration. This is the successful establishment of a species in a bare area. The species reaches new site from any other area. The seeds, spores, or other propagules of the species reach the bare area. This process is known as migration. It's generally brought by air, water, and various agents. Then it is establishment. After reaching to new area, the process of successful establishment of the species as a result of adjustment with the condition prevailing there is known as ecdysis. I'm not sure about the pronunciation. It would be better to check that. In plants, after migration, seeds or propagules germinate, seedlings grow, and adults start to reproduce. Then aggregation. After successful establishment of a species as a result of reproduction, the individuals of the species increase in number. As compared to earlier stages, there are a large number of individuals of a species that have aggregated in the given area. Mechanism of succession, competition, and co-action. After aggregation of a large number of individuals of the species at the limited place, they develop competition, inter as well as intra-species competition. Then reaction, the mechanism of modification of the environment through the influence of living organisms present on it is known as a reaction. As results of a reaction, changes take place in soil, water, light, condition, temperature, and many other factors of the environment. Due to all these, environment is modified, becoming unsuitable for the existing community. It sooner or later is replaced by another community, sterile community. Then stabilization or climax. Finally, there occurs a stage in the process when the final terminal community become more or less stabilized for a longer period of time, and it can maintain itself in equilibrium with the climate of the area. This final community is not replaced. This is known as climax community and a stage as climax stage. Model of succession. Facilitation model. Species interactions that benefit at least one of the participants and cause harm to neither. Facilitation can be categorized as mutualisms, in which both species benefit, or commensalisms, in which one species benefit and the other is unaffected. Facilitation model. Then tolerance model. All species involved in succession are equally capable of establishing themselves on a recently disturbed site, but those capable of attaining a larger population size quickly are more likely to become dominant. Facilitation model ABCD. Tolerance model using the external source to tolerate a particular area. 0 indicate no effect. Successional model. Inhibition model. Earlier successional species actually inhibit growth of later successional species and reduce growth of colonizing species already present. Example, pioneer species might modify the environment through rapid growth and make the area increasingly shady, essentially increasing competition for light. Concept of ecosystem. Habitat, place where an organism live. Population, all the organisms of the same species who live in a particular geographical area and are capable of interbreeding. Community, an interacting group of various species in a common location. Ecosystem, a complex relationship between all the living and non-living things. Plants, animals, sun, water, climate, etc. interact with each other. Then comes biome, a large area of land that is classified based on the climate, plants and animals that make their biomes here. Levels of organization. Individual, population, community, ecosystem, biome and biosphere. Ecosystem components. Components of ecosystem. Ecosystem abiotic components and biotic components. In case of abiotic components, we could see climatic factors and edaphic factors. Edaphic means related to soil. So climatic factors, rain, light, wind, temperature. Edaphic factors, we could see soil, pH, minerals, and topography. Then biotic components, producers, that means autotrophs, consumers, heterotrophs, decomposers, saprotrophs. Then consumers are again of 4 types: primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, and quaternary consumer. Environment.